Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. And to our returning viewers, thank you for sticking with us and continuing to support thoughtful, honest conversations. Now today, we're diving into a story that is not just surprising, but honestly, a little ironic, because for years we've watched certain sections of the British media go all in defending one side of the royal family while relentlessly criticising the other. But now something interesting is happening. Yes, you heard that right. Even outlets like the Dailymail are starting to admit something that critics have been pointing out for a long time: that Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, might not be as original or as effortlessly authentic as they've often been portrayed. Well, Dailymail just admitted that William and Kate Middleton are copycats. Mail claims that Princess Kate is trying to copy Meghan's live, laugh, love aesthetic. Even the fawning British media are calling bullshit on William and Kate's fake, cringy, choreographed family photo ops. I hate to say it, but it's all become a bit cringy and live, laugh, love for my liking. The writer points out that presenting contrived, professional pics and pretending they are organic holiday snaps is particularly dishonest. What's new? Have we forgotten the fake Mother's Day photo already? Of course, no British media article is complete without dragging Harry and Meghan's names in for clicks. This is so funny, but yes, they are admitting it. And the reason this is making waves? A claim that Princess Kate is leaning into what's being described as a live, laugh, love aesthetic, an approach many people associate with none other than Meghan Markle. Yes, that Meghan. Let's take our time and really unpack what's going on here, because this story is about more than just photos. It's about image, perception, and how narratives are built and sometimes quietly rewritten. So, according to the article, there's a growing sense of discomfort, even among traditionally supportive voices, about the way William and Kate present their family life to the public. The criticism isn't coming from the usual corners either. It's emerging from within the very media space that has long celebrated them. Words like cringy, overly polished, and choreographed are now being used to describe their recent public-facing content. And one line in particular has caught people's attention. I hate to say it, but it's all become a bit cringy and live, laugh, love for my liking. Now, think about that for a second. That phrase, live, laugh, love, isn't just a throwaway comment. It represents a whole aesthetic, a style of presentation that emphasizes warmth, relatability, emotional appeal, and a kind of curated domestic perfection. It's soft lighting, smiling children, carefully framed moments that look spontaneous, but feel just a little too perfect. And for years, critics have said that this kind of aesthetic lacks authenticity when it feels overly constructed. Which brings us to the core of the criticism: authenticity. The article suggests that many of the images released by William and Kate are presented as natural, candid snapshots, moments captured in real time without planning or staging. But behind the scenes, these images are reportedly carefully orchestrated. Professional photographers, strategic lighting, multiple takes, all the elements you'd expect from a controlled shoot rather than a spontaneous family moment. And here's where the tension lies. There's nothing inherently wrong with professional photography. In fact, it's expected for public figures. But the issue arises when those images are framed as something they're not. Because audiences today are incredibly perceptive. People can sense when something is curated, and when they feel like they're being presented with a version of reality that isn't fully transparent, it can create a sense of disconnect. Now, let's talk about the comparison that's quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, being made. For years, Meghan Markle has been associated with a lifestyle-driven aesthetic. From her earlier ventures into blogging and branding to her public appearances, she's often leaned into a style that emphasizes storytelling, emotion, and visual appeal. And she's been criticized for it, at times heavily. She's been described as overly curated, too image-conscious, too focused on presentation. But now, when similar elements begin to appear in the public image of William and Kate, the reaction is different, or at least it used to be. Because now even supportive voices are beginning to question whether the same standards should apply across the board. And this is where the story becomes less about individuals and more about systems. Because the media plays a powerful role in shaping how public figures are perceived. It decides what gets highlighted, what gets criticized, and what gets overlooked. For a long time, the narrative around Prince Harry and Meghan has been one of disruption, of breaking away from tradition, of challenging established norms. Meanwhile, William and Kate have been positioned as the embodiment of stability and continuity. But narratives aren't fixed, they evolve, and sometimes they collide. Let's also address the issue of credibility because it's central to this discussion. The article points out that presenting staged photos as candid moments can feel misleading, and whether or not that's intentional, the perception alone can be enough to spark criticism. It also brings back memories of past controversies, like that widely discussed Mother's Day photo, which led to questions about editing and transparency. Now again, this isn't about relitigating that moment, but it does highlight a pattern. When public trust is shaken, even slightly, it can change how everything else is perceived. Because once people start questioning authenticity, they tend to look more closely at everything. Another interesting aspect of this story is the media's continued reliance on comparisons. Even when the focus is on William and Kate, the names of Harry and Meghan are often brought into the conversation. And it's worth asking why. Is it because their stories are inherently linked? Possibly. But it's also likely because those comparisons generate attention. They create a narrative tension that keeps audiences engaged. The problem is, it can also prevent a more nuanced discussion. Because instead of evaluating each couple on their own terms, everything becomes a comparison, a contrast, a competition, and that can oversimplify complex realities. Now let's zoom out even further. What we're really looking at here is a shift in audience expectations. People today don't just consume content, they analyze it, they question it, they engage with it critically. They understand branding, they recognize strategy, and they're increasingly drawn to authenticity, even if that authenticity is imperfect. So when something feels overly polished, overly staged, or overly curated, it can create friction. Not because audiences expect perfection, but because they value honesty. And that brings us back to the central question: is this really about copying, or is it about convergence? Because in a media landscape where storytelling, relatability, and visual appeal are key, it's not surprising that different public figures might adopt similar strategies. The difference lies in how those strategies are perceived and how they're framed. For Meghan, that approach was often framed as inauthentic. For William and Kate, it was framed as charming and relatable. But now those frames are starting to shift. So what does this mean moving forward? It could mean that William and Kate adjust their approach. leaning into a more transparent style of communication. It could mean that the media continues to apply more balanced scrutiny. Or it could simply be a moment, a brief departure from the usual narrative before things return to familiar patterns. But regardless of what happens next, this moment is revealing, because it shows that no public image is immune to re-evaluation, and that even the most carefully constructed narratives can be questioned. At the end of the day, this isn't just about royal photos or media headlines. It's about trust, it's about perception, and it's about the evolving relationship between public figures and the audiences who watch them. Because in a world where everything is documented, shared and analysed, authenticity isn't just a preference, it's an expectation. And with that, we'll wrap up today's discussion. What do you think about this shift in tone? Do you believe the criticism is fair, or do you think it's being blown out of proportion? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always enjoy hearing your perspectives. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these conversations going. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.